Hello everyone. In the previous two videos, I had discussed the importance of problem solving, and in this video, I'm going to discuss something which is even more important than problem solving, something which should come even before problem solving. But before we can get into that discussion, let me begin today's session with something a little bit different. So consider the following sentences. The first sentence, the sun rises in the east. Consider the second sentence, there is strength in unity. And consider the third sentence, divide and conquer. Well, you may think, have I gone crazy? What's so special about these three sentences? Well, all throughout this discussion, I'm going to discuss certain things which will tie in directly to these three very simple, very apparently absolutely simple sentences, and you will see that there is a lot more to unpack even in the simple message of these three sentences. And just to keep things a little bit interesting, consider a bonus fourth sentence. I am 32 and my girlfriend is 13. Well, you don't have to go and report to the police. This is a sentence I have picked up from the Reddit website, and I'm going to come back to it. Again, tying in to the message that I'm trying to give in this video. Alright, so let us begin this video in earnest. So as I was saying, I'm going to discuss something which is even more foundational than problem solving. What is it? This is the aptitude to learn by oneself. Sounds very boring, right? But this is something which, if you lose this opportunity to learn by oneself, if you lose this during your school life, although it is not completely irreversible, but it is tremendously consequential for your further studies, especially when you go to your +2, when there is a massive jump in the level from class 10 to class 11, and certainly when you go to a university level education. And if you wish to go for higher studies, this is of tremendous importance. So in this video, what I'm going to do is first of all discuss why you need to learn by oneself. Why do you need to develop this aptitude? And then I'm going to discuss, based on proper scientific evidence and research which has been done for over 30, 40 years, 50 years, even more than that actually, some of the things which you can keep in mind to develop this ability, this aptitude to learn by oneself. Alright, so let us begin. Why do you need to learn by oneself, by yourself? Well, the first thing is that there will be certain topics all throughout your life, whether it is part of your formal education or as part of your need or your desire to learn anything new. You may find that there is no teacher around to teach you that particular topic. So you have to learn it by yourself. That is the most obvious reason. The second reason is that maybe in a formal setting, you do have a teacher who has the responsibility of teaching you a certain topic. But it may turn out, and it does happen in the best of institutions and universities, that the teacher is not very good. I'm sure many of you who may be even going to the best schools in your cities have encountered this problem, that your teacher is just not good enough. Next is, even if the teacher is good, okay, let us say you are extremely fortunate, your teacher is good, even then it may not be possible for you to learn everything from your teacher, or the teacher may not have the time and the bandwidth in the limited scope of the classroom to give individual attention to you and to help you learn at your own pace in the style that you are most comfortable with. So then also you have to learn things on your own. And finally, as I have already said, as you keep on going to higher and higher classes, as you go up in the academic ladder, you have to develop, you have to depend on this ability to learn by oneself, because the expectation in any university, in any institute, is that you are going to pick things up on your own. And this becomes more and more weighty. Means that some instruction will be given to you, but the amount of things which you have to learn by yourself, that is tremendous. So what can you do, really? What can you do to develop this ability during your school life? The things that I'm going to discuss, it is not just things which I'm pulling out from thin air. It is not an opinion piece. Rather, I have actually gone through some articles and books And I've realized there's a lot of research which people have done. So just like you have people doing research in physics, chemistry, even in the humanities, in mathematics, similarly, people have been doing research, a lot of research actually, proper scientific research in how to develop educational systems. So how to develop the teaching systems in our schools and various kinds of institutes. So one of the main books which I have followed for this, I must give credit where it is due, is a very famous book by Daniel Willingham, Professor Daniel Willingham. So the book is a little bit funnily named. It is Why Students Don't Like School. The first thing which you need to realize, and this may sound a little bit counterintuitive, which is the reason I'm making this video, is the importance of memory. What I'm saying here is again backed by research. The research which has been done in the domain of cognitive science. So Professor Daniel Willingham is actually a cognitive scientist. He has compiled the various evidence that says that yes, memory is important. Now one may counter argue that, okay, who is this Daniel Willingham? I know a quotation from none other than Professor Einstein, who has said that imagination is more important than memory. Well, true, it is important, but try to understand very carefully what he's saying, Professor Einstein, that imagination is more important than memory. He never said that memory is not important. Okay, so once you reach a certain level, we have to understand it in the proper context in which he may have said that once you reach a certain level, in order to create new knowledge, you have to have imagination. So we have to understand things in the proper context. But here what we are trying to discuss is the importance of memory as part of our beginning educational journey as it is supposed to be done at schools. When you have barely any knowledge and you are trying to acquire the knowledge, as you go about this acquisition at the very novice level, beginners level, it is at that stage that memory plays a hugely important role, probably much more than even your teachers have emphasized. So there is a lot of disparaging comments regarding rote memorization, which is probably bad, but memorization by itself is not necessarily bad. I want to make this absolutely clear. People who have done research in cognitive science, they have more or less very nicely and very firmly established that our human brain, we have a certain amount of working memory. Okay, so this is the working memory. So this is like where you process everything, starting from the input from the environment, the information that you have from the environment, then you load into that memory the other bits and pieces of information which may be relevant for the discussion or for the solution of the problem at hand from the deep recesses of your long-lasting memory, and then you cook around the various items, this input from the environment and your long-lasting memories, those bits and pieces, and then you try to come up with a solution for that. So all of these things happens in your working memory, but the unfortunate thing is that our working memory is very limited. This has been very well established, and there is not much variation among the working memory of various people, the normal people. Okay, I'm not talking about those savants and those absolute God-gifted geniuses. What people have actually found out is that even a marginal difference in the cognitive memory, in the working memory of people, can play a big role in bringing about large differences in the performances and the learning abilities of individuals. So a little bit of a difference can bring about a huge difference in the actual performance. So if it is just a little bit more than a little, then imagine how much of a genius a person may turn out to be. So it is like that. But the thing is that our working memory is limited, and it doesn't really, grow as we age. So what actually grows is the repository of various bits and pieces of information that we keep on acquiring and putting in our background memory, and from which we can pull in the various kinds of requisite knowledge into our working memory, So as we grow older, we have more experiences, we have more knowledge, we can pull in the requisite information from our background memory, and we can cook better and we can produce something better. Now, you may think that what kind of a abstract discussion is this? So let me go back to that first sentence I told you at the beginning. The sun rises in the east. Okay, so I'm assuming that you are something like 14, 15 years old, maybe even a little bit younger. So for you, this is almost like a self-evident sentence. I mean, there is absolutely nothing special about it. The sun rises in the east. But try to take a step back and try to put yourself in the shoes of a little kid, maybe a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old kid who is just starting to learn. For him or her, this sentence is way too complicated. Try to think about it. So, recently my son has started learning a few English words here and there, bits and pieces. So, he can identify the word the, T-H-E, the. So, if I show him this sentence, the sun rises in the east, for him, decoding the fact that THE is the itself is a big achievement. He gets happy just by this achievement. THE is the. And then he sees SUN, sun. He identifies that as sun. And then that is another major achievement. Rises, the moment I say rises, he cannot identify this word. But suppose I tell him that this is rises. His mind will immediately go to something like rice, bhat, which we have for dinner, and he gets excited about dinner because food. So you see where this is going. The sun rises, and then maybe he identifies I and in, and then there is another the, and finally when it comes to east, E-A-S-T, east, he has absolutely no idea. Now you see, decoding the words itself is such a major achievement for him. Forget about the meaning, forget about the comprehension, forget about the implication that this sentence has. For you, it is the entire meaning. You don't even have to put any effort to decode the words. It is just self-evident to you. You don't even think twice about it. But for him, a 4 or 5-year-old kid, it is extremely hard. He has to decode the words, and by the time he has finished decoding the words, he has no power left in his, or no space left in his working memory to even go for a understanding of the meaning of this entire sentence. So you see, even for such a simple sentence, there is a lot of background information which gets loaded into your working memory for you to comprehend it. And it happens just like that, within a fraction of a second. How did you reach this stage? Do you decode this entire thing part by part, as I have painstakingly pointed out to you? Or do you just take in the entire meaning automatically? So this automaticity in your comprehension, this fluency of your comprehension has not happened overnight. It has happened as a result of your acquisition of certain meanings, certain words, and a certain amount of practice that has gone into comprehending the entire thing. Now, let me turn the table on you and let me show you a title of a scientific paper. So the title here says, Combining Mechanical and Chemical Effects in the Deformation and Failure of a Cylindrical Electrode Particle in a Lithium-ion Battery. Now, although you may understand each and every word that is here in this title, so this is one of my papers, if taken together, you probably do not understand what this means. Furthermore, if you are in, let's say, class 6 or 7, you may be a little bit stumped even by that little combination of the Li, which I read out as lithium and then ion. So what is this lithium? You may recognize it as an element from the periodic table if you've already been exposed to it. But if not, that takes some effort. So even though you understand all the words, you may not be able to comprehend the entire meaning. So every time you encounter something alien, you have to, in order to understand it, you have to load background information from your long memory, from your long-lasting memory, and then you have to again churn it around in your working memory to understand it. So memory is very, very important. The more memory you have, well, memory means the more information that you have, more background information that you have, the better you'll be able to understand things. And the better you have this understanding, the more you will be able to read more and understand more. So it is like a so this development is, I don't want to use the word exponential, but in a very layman's terms, it is exponential. It is not linear. The more you learn, the amount of information that which you can acquire gets increased like with tremendous rapidity. The next important thing is the problem with abstract ideas. The way that our education system is designed, you have to contend with a lot of abstract ideas. So our brain by design is not very good with abstract ideas. We are very good with concrete examples. And this is not just limited to mathematics or geometry or science or any kind of scientific kind of knowledge, but even with humanities kinds of topics, you have to contend with abstract ideas. So how do you go about dealing with this? Again, for this, you need to have some kind of background knowledge. How do you go about developing this background knowledge? How do you connect this background knowledge to the abstract ideas? Well, you have to expose yourself to lots of different examples. But then there is the problem that just because you have exposed yourself to different examples, it doesn't necessarily mean that your conception of the concrete example and the conception of the abstract idea can be transferred to a new situation. Let me give you an example. So remember that second sentence I told you, there is strength in unity. All of you understand this as 14-year-old, 15-year-old students. This strength in unity, this is an abstract concept. Let me try to give you an example of a problem which you will face in transfer in another context. So there is this example which Professor Willingham mentions. This is medical problem that there is a tumor in the body and there is a way to destroy that tumor by pointing some special kinds of rays at the tumor. But the problem is that the tumor is embedded within the body, and if you pass too strong a ray into the body, the path that will take through the body, through the healthy tissues of the body, it is also going to burn up those tissues. So if you make it too strong enough to destroy the tumor, it will also in the process destroy all the healthy tissues. What can you do? And you may be thinking, so why am I mentioning all of this just after that strength and unity? The kind of abstraction that I'm talking about here has two steps. First of all, the abstraction is you have to reverse your thinking. So there is strength in unity. What was the third sentence I mentioned in the beginning? Divide and conquer. So there is strength in unity and then there is divide and conquer. These two concepts are actually related. They are just the opposite. Now, you know both of these things. Can you now think of a way to address this medical problem? You may pause this video for a second, for maybe half a minute, however long it takes. Many people actually are not able to solve this problem, but if you're able to solve it, great. So the solution is like this. Well, you do not point a single extremely powerful ray at the tumor. Rather, you point a number of rays from different directions at the tumor. So when they converge at a single point on the tumor, their combined power will be able to destroy the tumor. But because each of the rays themselves are weak and they're pointing from the different directions, when they pass through the healthy tissues, they are not going to burn them up. Okay, so this is a very simple, elegant solution, and you can now probably understand what is the connection with those two sentences, those two proverbial sentences. There is strength in unity and divide and conquer. There is another step which I did not mention, was that although these are two opposite things, the way that I have used those two proverbial sentence information in this problem is to actually think of the message there in a slightly different way. So there, the divide and conquer thing was in a negative sense, but here I have done the opposite of that. I have done the divide and conquer in a positive sense, to do something good for a human, for this medical problem, for a human being. It is after all the same thing. Okay, the deep structure of this problem is directly connected to that proverbial information which you all know. But you see how difficult it is sometimes to transfer from that abstract thing by this double inversion of the concept to this concrete problem. So when you go through different kinds of examples which churns your mind through the applications of these various concepts to various kinds of concrete situations, then you slowly develop this ability to understand abstract ideas. So it is not always good to just mug up the abstract things, or to mug up or maybe to just mindlessly go through number of different examples. Rather, it is important to step back and try to connect with these abstract ideas in a very conscious fashion. Even if your teacher doesn't do it, you have to stand back a little and try to make this type of connection. And it is only by this way that you will be able to develop your knowledge from something which is shallow to something which is rather deep, which will enable you to appreciate the deep structure of apparently disconnected problems. The next thing is something which may be a little bit unpopular, again like the stressing of the memory, and that is the importance of practice. Now, I may sound like a broken record here, telling you grandpa's tales of how hard you have to work and how much you have to practice and how much you have to drill. But again, I want to point out that this is not something like a grandpa's tale. This is actually backed up by evidence, by research evidence which has been carried out over the last 20-30 years. So what happened was that in the United States, a lot of research has gone on this, and educationists there in the 80s, they came up with this well-meant, very well-intentioned idea that instead of making students go through some kind of drilling and practice, maybe to take them towards problem solving, it will be good to expose them to something called inquiry-based learning or discovery method of teaching. So these were very buzzwords in the 80s and 90s, and even now some people are still hanging on to those despite evidence to the contrary. This was actually seen. So those kids who were in the schools in the 80s and 90s and the late 90s and early 2000s, when they went into college, it was found that their performance had actually deteriorated compared to the previous generations of the students. So people again rethought and did more research, and they found out that no, it is actually the more structured kind of, although not the traditional kind of drilling which was done maybe much earlier, but something which is backed by evidence. If people do this kind of practice, then their performance can actually improve. And people have done studies for this through various control groups, different kinds of teaching methodologies they have used, and they have found this. So the point that I'm trying to make here is simple. You need practice. It is quite self-evident that you need practice to develop a certain competence in any kind of topic or any kind of activity or development of skill. That much is a given. You also need practice to develop proficiency. Whether it is in sports, whether it is in studies, whether it is in musical skills, you need practice to develop a proficiency. But then, do you need practice beyond a stage where it seems apparently that you are not developing anything? So your skills have kind of plateaued or leveled, and you are not developing really, but your teachers are still asking you to practice. What's the point of that? Well, if you keep on practicing, what happens is that the skills, the information that you are working with, it gets embedded in your long-lasting memory. And earlier we have already discussed how that helps. When it gets embedded in your long-lasting memory, it starts getting organized into various kinds of structures, and then when you kind of encounter new situations, you are able to load that from your long-lasting memory and apply them within the limited confines of your working memory better. So practice helps to develop this long-lasting memory. What also happens is that it develops a certain amount of fluency in your skills. What is meant by that is, remember that sentence, the sun rises in the east, how automatic your comprehension of that thing was. So this thing, automatic, it is actually a technical term in education research. So developing this automaticity is absolutely dependent on how much you have practiced. It may seem like, well, that's self-evident, but well, no, people have actually proved it through proper scientific studies. As we have said in the context of the importance of abstract ideas, if you keep on practicing beyond your proficiency level, what happens is that the kind of connections it helps develop in your memory, it helps you to transfer abstract ideas from one concrete example situation to another concrete example situation. And that is one of the beginning of your journey towards more advanced level problem solving. So there's a very good example from chess actually. So chess players, if you show them a chessboard like from the middle of a game, and then you remove the pieces and you ask them to again bring back the pieces to the positions which they had seen for maybe half a minute or so, they'll be able to do it. Okay, if you take a chess player of a certain level of ability, like a professional, people who go into competitions and play, they'll be able to do it. How do they do it? Okay, it seems like magic. So many pieces are there and they're able to recall it from memory and they do it. Well, they don't actually do it from memory piece by piece. What they have done is basically they have chunked up that information, they've chopped up that information. They don't do it consciously, they've chopped up that information in terms of the functional units of the game. So when they are shown the pieces not arbitrarily set, but as part of an actual game, in the midst of it, they can understand the meaning of the different positions, and that it is that they recall from memory. Okay, as opposed to that, they have done this actual study that if an extremely experienced chess player is shown a random pieces, like where the pieces should not be actually as part of the rules of the chess, if they're just randomly scattered on the board, and then it's removed, then they are simply not able to bring it back to the actual pieces. So it is not something that they have some superlative memory. It is just that they understand the functional organization of an actual meaningful chessboard. When you are doing your practice, if you ever take my advice, please remember that you have to space out your practice. This also has been shown by research, the importance of it. So instead of cramming in one long session or one short spurt of an extremely energetic session, you have to space out your practice. First of all, the benefit is that doing this almost mind-numbing practice is boring. So Professor Willingham's words, so if you space it out, it becomes less boring. Furthermore, it helps in better retention of your skills. Finally, I have not forgotten that last sentence. I am 32 and my girlfriend is 13. So let me show you the context in which this sentence was written. So as you can see, the next sentence is, can we still do quests together, or our levels too far apart? Sorry, kind of new to WOW. So WOW is a game. It's World of Warcraft. So those of you who are familiar with this game will probably already understand what this I am 32 and my GF is 13. Take a moment to understand this. Those of you who cannot, let me show you an explanation which goes further down. So this gentleman who had written this, he has given an update to his previous statement. Thanks a lot, guys. I picked her up from her middle school earlier, and we are going to go questing. Up to this part, it sounds rather criminal. Okay, 32-year-old guy, because that is the assumption we are working with. uh, picking up his girlfriend from middle school, because that is the assumption here for most of us. But then you see, as soon as she has done grading her student papers. So actually, what is going on here, if you have not already figured it out, is that this 32-year-old man is not actually a 32-year-old man. He's just some age guy, which we don't know what his age is, and his girlfriend is actually a middle school teacher. So nothing inappropriate there. The 32 and the 13 are actually their levels in the world of Warcraft. It is the levels. So when you start working with the wrong assumptions, when we do not have the appropriate background information because we completely lose the context, you see what happens. So on that note, one final piece of advice is that since background information is so very much important and we need to be exposed to different kinds of examples, and our ultimate journey here, the whole point of this thing is that you can learn how to learn yourself so that you can proceed towards the journey of developing your proficiency in problem solving. And you can do that by first starting worked out examples, because just as we have seen this, there will be certain situations where you will just not be able to understand anything of what is going on, okay, because you'll be working from the wrong assumptions. So you have to look at the worked example, which is the master solution, and only then you'll be able to develop some kind of mental models for yourself through which you can fall back on your own abilities and develop your own problem solving. So when you are learning something new, go through and worked out example, go through the actual discussions in the textbook, and then proceed towards problem solving. If you proceed like this, only and only then you'll be able to learn on your own and start doing problem solving on your own. So this was a rather long video, but I hope you'll be able to take some important take-home messages and really start learning properly on your own. So all the very best. Thank you.